but the words out of his mouth were something that I have never, ever heard in a church before. I will never forget them. He says, nobody comes to church to hear what they've done wrong. You already know all that. Say what? He's like, I don't care what you've done wrong. God already knows what you've done wrong. He doesn't care. He just wants your heart. And this is the same reaction I had that day. Like, what? He loves you. What? What do you mean he loves me? Then where the hell has he been? Yeah. Was what I said, you know? Yeah. Like,
what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Experience the Truth. If this is your first time, my name is Alex. We created this channel to refute lies and misconception that keep you from the love of God, because odds are you don't hate God, you just don't know him. So let's get to know him. Today, we're not going to be talking apologetics. We're not going to be talking about, we're not going to be refuting lies, but we are going to be highlighting an incredible testimony of what God did for a prodigal son named Tommy.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all. Yeah, you're right. I'm definitely a prodigal, as I was saying before. I kind of grew up in the church, and decided to go the completely opposite direction. I did it almost with a sense of pride, and completely the opposite. Anything that you could really imagine that's in contradiction to the Bible, I feel like I've done it. And did it with this puffed up chest, kind of. And now things are just different. Now, I mean, 20 plus years of doing things the wrong way, and now things are just different.
And I want to talk about that because, that I really do believe that people today, I pray this every time, and I genuinely believe it, that that when people listen to this today, we were just praying before that this would literally call back prodigal sons to God. It would call back the rebels, and you can't. The love of God is
you can't outrun it.
You can't outrun
it at all.
It's a bit different than the perceptions people have, and I think stories like yours really highlight, this idea where we think behavior wins over God. Your story is in contradiction to that thinking of, I have to please God, or I have to earn God's favor in order for him to love me. And I think your story is really going to open the eyes of those that think they're too far gone, or have been beaten down, or think God's upstairs like with lightning bolts just waiting for people to mess up.
Man, I hope so, because all of those things that you just described are so familiar to me. Like, those feelings are so familiar. It's like kind of cliche, but I legit thought that I would be killed, that God would kill me if I tried to walk through the doors of a church again at one point,
Wow.
And you hear that all the time. If I walk through there, lightning is going to strike.
Yeah.
But I in somewhere in the back of my mind, I really thought that was the case. Like, I can't walk through those doors because of all the things that I've done. So I hope this speaks to somebody. Even if it just speaks to one person, that's a cool thing.
So let's talk about, the history of Tommy. Let's run it back. I want to know about your childhood. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like? Were you raised in the church? What was your perception of God? I kind of want to get the family tree and the history lesson to better understand where you're coming from.
Sure, I can do that. Probably, I was born. No, we're not going to go that far back. But what we'll say here is that I had a biological father that I never knew.
Okay.
But I had a stepdad that came in when I was 5, and he was my dad for my whole life. I say this because eventually probably in this story is going to come up again because it's pivotal. It's important. But I was raised in the church. I was raised in a Lutheran church. I went to Lutheran school from kindergarten all the way through my senior year of high school. So there was a lot of, there was church every Sunday, some of the Wednesdays, but there was religion classes every day. There was praying, there was chapel, there was, memory work, memorizing verses, like the Christmas pageants, those types of things, so that was all very real growing up for me. Now what was real at school wasn't necessarily the same at home. Like we believed at home, but we didn't walk in our belief, sort of I believe that cancer is a thing, but nobody in my family had it. I believe Jesus is a thing, but we don't really.
It's not a reality.
Right. Correct. But when I was really little, man, I remember vividly, my mom being at work in the summer or whatever, and me being home and hearing tornado warnings or whatever, and me being afraid for my mother. And I would go to God as a little kid and I would just cry and pray God, please help her get home safe. And he always did. And I had that trust in him probably from the foundation of what I was taught in school. But as I grew older, as I got into high school, as I started to experience teenager things, I started to deviate from that trust. I started to depend on myself more. And then there was sports and girls. Girls was a problem when I was a teenager, so those types of things just kind of got me to look a different way, I guess. And kind of some of the struggles that I got into as a child weren't really any different than the average person's struggles, but I learned that if I was getting myself into a problem, I needed to get myself out of the problem. And so that dependence on God kind of went by the wayside. I guess.
So as a kid, you had you had a faith when stuff hit the fan, you knew who to go to. Did that ever change growing up? As you say, you're going through these problems and and your attention is a little bit misdirected with girls and stuff, or was that always there? Was there ever a bitterness that kind of changed your mind about that, or did that always kind of remain in the back of your brain? You were just preoccupied.
No, something changed. It went away. It completely split, I know that when I was, man, I'm going to get real candid here, ain't I? When I was about 15, I said I discovered girls, and the girl that I was dating in my Christian high school became pregnant, and she ended up having a miscarriage. But the people that I was in school with, the response that I got from them regarding this, it wasn't how could you do something so unbiblical? It wasn't that. It was more so you were supposed to step up. The reason that this miscarriage happened was your fault. You were supposed to be a better person. All of these things, and I was kind of really destroyed by these people's opinions of me. Growing up, I wasn't this super popular dude that, I was, so other people's opinions of me mattered. And so when everybody kind of looked at me in a negative way, it kind of crushed me. And I think that's the moment where I started to realize I have to put on this false bravado, act like I don't care, puff up my Superman chest and let those bullets bounce off. And I think that was kind of the beginning of a really rough life, because I carried that false bravado along for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of develop a calloused heart when that happens, right? Like, you know, you got to act a certain way. And then there's a callous that kind of builds up when you, to keep you from that hurt or opinion of others. Like when you get this, I don't get it. I don't really give, you know.
Exactly. I don't care what your opinion of me is. I'm just gonna, you're absolutely right. Callous heart. And then along with that comes a desensitization of things, you know, like,
you started getting like, so what age was that around?
I was like 15.
Yeah.
You know,
so now moving forward, you said the desensitization, you got a calloused heart, you have this bravado. What did that lead to anything?
Man, that led to everything that could possibly be wrong. It, you know, so from there, it led me into, all the while searching for something I didn't recognize I was searching for, right? I was searching for approval, or searching for love, like this unconditional love. And I was trying to find that in girls, in women. And I started to think that I was only good enough to give, you know, one thing to, you know, if I give them my body or whatever, then they will love me. And I'm, you know, and it just kept going and going and going. That started in high school, and that just went forever. It seemed like,
and more callous, more and more desensitized to, that not being a sacred thing anymore. It's more like a handshake. Yeah.
That's a terrible way to put it, but in a very accurate, you know, like, that's what
happens. Yeah. So you're going down that road, you're getting involved with girls, you're seeking love and affirmation in the wrong places.
Well, I before, you know, right after I graduated high school, my then girlfriend was pregnant, and my daughter was born. So I was 19.
Wow.
And a father.
Wow.
With no clue.
Yeah.
What I'm doing, you know.
Wow.
Just no idea what's going on.
Jeez.
She had, my girlfriend at the time, she had not even graduated high school yet. So she was in her senior year, and I turned 19. My daughter was born, and then it was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And man, my folks, in the fact that they have no idea, because they've never had a 19-year-old son who's been in this situation before, did their best to, you know, to do what they thought was right for me. And that was to support me when I decided, well, I'm not going to have anything to do with this.
Wow.
And it wasn't until about 3 years later. So I split with my daughter's mom, and about 3 years later, there was, you know, hey, I want some child support. So there was a court thing, and I remember going to court and going, well, I guess if I'm going to do this and pay child support, which I need to do, then I want to see my kid. And it was sort of like this awakening, and I became an actual dad 3 years later, and started really investing into my child's life.
Yeah.
And then reconciled with her mom, married her, had 2 more kids over the course of the next, I don't know, 7 years or so, and just was amazed at what being a father was really meant.
Yeah.
It was like the coolest thing in the world. Like, and I'm realizing this as I'm speaking it to you right now. maybe for the first time, actually, but that unconditional love that I was seeking.
Wow.
I found in my children.
Wow.
I was a superhero to them.
Yeah.
I didn't have to puff up my chest for those bullets to bounce. They saw their like out of shape, cigarette smoking dad, and they still thought he was like this hero, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so that was the focus of my life. I loved being a dad. I did not like being a husband. I did not know how to be a husband. And I did not do it well. I did not do it well at all. And I say this because as I'm speaking this about, I found that unconditional love for my children, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. So I was still seeking it elsewhere. Like I felt like I wasn't good enough for my wife. So I was still seeking, or she wasn't loving me the way that I wanted to be loved. So I was still, I was running around on the side all the time. Just terrible.
Wow.
Just terrible. So we lasted 10 years and then split. And that was like the pivotal moment where I went off the deep end. Like I was trying to hold everything together the best that I could while I was married to her. And from the outside, we probably looked like a normal family, but even to her, maybe we probably looked like a normal family, but I knew that wasn't the case. And I wasn't happy, and I divorced her, and then I went off the deep end. And that's when I started to, really start getting involved with drugs, alcohol. Now I'm a part-time dad. Now I'm only there on the, every other week or whatever it was. So now I have all this free time. And like they used to tell me when I was in grade school, idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Yeah.
And yep, that was true. That turns out that was a true thing that I learned. So I was just, I was partying when I didn't have the kids. I was, being a womanizer when I didn't have the kids, and it all just became more and more and more desensitizing, and was seeking, it's like, it was never enough. Like, okay, I've done that drug. Well, let's try this one. Yeah, it wasn't enough either. Let's try this one. Okay, I like that one. That's not enough of it though. Let's try some more. Or, that woman wasn't enough. Let's try more, let's try one, each week. Let's try one each day. It was just ridiculous. Yeah.
Wow.
I think that continued for quite a while. Probably, if I look back, like the majority of my 30s, pretty much a wasted decade.
Wow.
I would say, and as I get older, I look back and I'm like, there's 10 years I'm never going to get back.
That's wild to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I ended up breaking the law. Well, I broke the law a lot, but I ended up getting caught.
Yeah.
And I had to go to jail, and I did. And I got out, and I had all these conditions. Like if you are, you're on probation now or whatever. So there's no drinking, there's no drugs, there's no illegal activity. If you want to be around your kids, you need to come in and you need to do these drug tests. And they're, it started out like every 2 days I was doing drug tests. And then I finally got to do it like once a week. And then I finally got to do this thing where I only had to call, and maybe I had a test that week. Maybe I didn't. Then I met this this person and started seeing her. And at the time, it seemed like she didn't care about any of the stuff that I had done and just accepted me for who I was. It turned out to be not true. But at the time, that's how it seemed. And so I kind of got stuck in this relationship, which ultimately opened me up to an even more chaotic world of drugs. And I'm basically at this time gambling with my life and the life of my children and I. So while I'm supposed to be testing for drugs every week, possibly, I don't care. I'm still doing them and hoping that I don't have to go and take a test. Hoping I don't have to go back to jail. And for the most part, that worked out well for me. I didn't have to, and as that happened, I just kept sinking deeper and deeper and deeper into addiction until finally this world that I had of being a dad and this other person that I was, they started to get closer, closer and closer together until they ended up commingling. And I remember getting a phone call from CPS, Child Protection Services. And they asked me to come to the police department. And I said, well, I was at my kid's sporting event, like a basketball game or something. And they're like, well, have him take the bus. And I'm like, I'm not going to have him take the bus. He's here with me. Mm-hmm. Well, why don't you both come to the police station? And I was like, okay. And I went there, and they asked me to voluntarily take a test. And it had been a while since I had used. So I was like, sure, I will take this test because I know it's going to be clean. And it wasn't. And they took my kids and put them in a foster home.
Wow.
Now, I thought that they were, excuse me, I thought that they were just going to release them to their mom, who was clean. She's not a drug person, but she ended up having a dirty test too. And she was like,
oh no,
well, this is nonsense. She got up, left the police station, went down, got a test, the hair follicle test, came back and was like, boom, I'm not using. All that being said, I'm sure that I don't exactly know how that happened, how she ended up with this test, but they ended up taking the kids and they put them in a foster home for a week. Wow. And I remember my son looking at me, my oldest son. I said, well, your kids can come in and say goodbye to you, and you're going to jail. And he looks up at me, and he was wearing my winter coat at the time. He had left his from the basketball game at school or somewhere, and so I had put him in my Vikings coat. And I just remember it clear as day, him standing there and his younger brother behind him, and he just goes, am I ever going to see you again? And I assured him, you're going to see me real soon. Yes. And I hugged my boys and let them go. And as soon as they got out of that room, I lost it. I broke down. Jeez. Now you would think, that would be the end. You would think like
wrenching.
Yeah. But it wasn't quite the end. The cops were generous to me. They ended up not taking me to jail, mostly because I had a wound on my hand that was infected and I needed to go to the hospital. And they're like, well, jail's just going to turn them away, so we're going to drop them off at home. So they brought me home, and I did end up going to the hospital, and I got out and got out of that relationship and started to move on with my life. And that was really difficult because here's this person that I thought accepted me for who I was in spite of everything. And now I have to go back to just being unlovable and alone. And on top of that, now the unconditional love that I had for my kids has been put at risk. You know, I'm not, you know, they might love me, but I'm not going to see it anymore.
Wow.
Because they're not around. Mom ended up with custody of them after that week in foster care or whatever. She got custody. I got squat. So now I'm worse off than I've ever been. I've got no person to even see me, to like, I am unseen. I am completely alone. So what do I do? I turn to drugs. I got away from that relationship. I moved out of that house. I moved into a friend's apartment and was trying to get better, trying to get on my feet, but the addiction kind of had its claws into me. And this, I didn't recognize this moment until years later, but I am high as heck and feeling alone and feeling lost and feeling sorry for myself, even though I put myself in this position. And it is like 2 a.m. and there's no chance I'm going to sleep. So I decide to leave this apartment at 2 a.m. and walk through the streets of St. Paul for some reason. And I have this breakdown. I don't know if it's because I've been up for too long. I don't know if it's because, I don't know why. But I'm feeling sorry for myself, and I start arguing with God. I haven't talked to God in years. And I just audibly, I remember, because I was out there for hours and there was, you know, a couple of people that came out onto the front porch as the sun was coming up, and they're looking at this crazy tweaker talking to himself as he's walking through these streets. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, I'm that guy. Yeah. But
I've seen those guys, and now I am that guy.
Right. But I ended up having this, now I'll call it a prayer. But at the time I didn't recognize that. But I am like, how could you let me do this? How could you allow me to sink to this level? You were supposed to be a God that loved me. How could you possibly let me make these choices? I'm supposed to be your child, and you're supposed to guide me. And you allowed me to make all of these terrible decisions, to go to jail, to step away from my family, even though they didn't always do things right. They were the people that loved me, and I'm alienated from them. My folks hadn't talked to me in years. My brother hadn't talked to me in years because of my life choices. And then it was almost like you're dangling these people in front of me that are pretending to love me or show me what it is that I want, and it's not real. And this false bravado that I've been walking around with, where nothing bothers me and I don't care and I'm desensitized, it's all BS. It's all crap, and everything hurts. Everything hurts. I've been pretending that nothing bothers me, and everything bothers me. And God, it's your fault, because where the heck have you been? Like, where were you? And I did this for like 3 hours, man, this conversation with him. And I'm screaming at him. High AF, streets of St. Paul, screaming at this invisible God who says he loves me but doesn't. Screw you, man. How screw you. This is stupid. Like, where are you now? Come help me. Do something.
Wow.
Like, help me or kill me. I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore.
Wow.
You either help me now or you just kill me now, because I don't want to deal with it anymore.
Wow.
I don't want to put the people that I care about through this kind of pain, and I don't know how to get out of it. So frickin' kill me or help me.
Wow.
Man, I forgot all about that until just now, really.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's pretty heavy, man. Wow. Jeez.
I mean, I remember the prayer, but I remember the moment, but I don't remember. I remember saying that now in this moment. I remember saying, like, help me or kill me.
Man.
Whew.
Yeah.
There was some sort of awakening that happened after that, which I wouldn't attribute to God then. Like, it was just me getting myself out of trouble again. Like, I got myself into this. I got my kids into this. I'm going to get us out of this. And I went to therapy, and I went to rehab, and I leaned on people that wanted to see me get out of this hole. People that God put in my life that I didn't even recognize, you know, like they're not even in my life anymore, but just like people that were stepping stones to help me get out of this. And eventually I did. One of the people that that comes to mind is while I was in addiction, in order to be around my kids, I had to have somebody there, and that person ended up helping me get a job, and that job led to the job that I'm in now. And in the job that I'm in now is where I met my current wife. And interesting, because when I started at this job that I'm at, I was literally just on the cusp of coming out of therapy, coming out of rehab, really just finally starting to like kind of recognize, like, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
I think I'm done with all this crap. But still, no God, no goal.
It was you.
Right. Anyways, I started dating this gal at my work, and we clashed. We fought and we clashed and we argued, but there was something there. And after coming out of therapy, I had this like super open mind, you know, like I can really look internally. I'm so zen or whatever, you know, like I really thought that I knew, you know, like therapy was really helpful, and it was. And so we started reading kind of like couples books because we really wanted to make things work, and we really wanted to figure out, like, how do we do this without bringing in old crap into our new relationship. And one of the books we were reading said that we had to have an open mind and an open heart to what the other person was saying. I can do that, man. I've been therapied. I can totally do that.
I've been around the block. I know how this works.
That's right. And shortly thereafter, she said, "Hey, I'd like to get involved with church again." And I said to her, "That's great. Tell God I said, what's up?" Because again, I was terrified. I was terrified of that oppression. Like, I'm not going back into that oppression. And and this is coming to my mind right now, and I think that I think that I felt like that's what started everything, was this religious oppression that I was trying so hard to escape that I went completely the opposite direction. And that's what got me to this craptastic point that I was at in my life. And now I'm finally coming out of it. You're asking me to go back? Man, lady, I don't think so. And she combats that with, the book said you had to have an open mind and an open heart.
Oh, wait, where is that? Where is that? Show me where that's.
I'm like, rip that page out.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
not my interpretation.
Correct. That's not how I read it, dear. But I was true to my word, and I said, okay. I said, but if we're going to go to church, we're going to go to this one place where I went to this breakfast for my buddy's, the day before my buddy's wedding. Because this breakfast was a bunch of dudes sitting around talking, and it reminded me of therapy. And I was like, that church might be the place I'm going to go. And she's like, I don't care where we go. Cool. So we saddled up and went to Bethel's Rock. And we went in, and my legs were shaking. My hands were sweaty. Yeah. I mean, I probably looked like I was still tweaking. I mean, I'm looking around, nervous. Yeah. My entire childhood was spent in a church. And I was like, these guys are going to judge me. They're going to look at me. I felt like I had this neon sign above my head that just said, felon, you know, like a terrible person. Like, here's a list of all the things that I've done.
Wow.
And that all it would take is one person to look at me and go, he doesn't belong here. So we sat in the back.
Yeah, a quick exit plan.
As close to the doors. Exactly right. Yep. I was like, there is the door. We're sitting here. Yeah. If this doesn't go the way I want it to, I'm out. And worship started. Hated it. Hated every second of it. Like, worship pastor was up there singing, and I was like, she's so fake. She's so fake. What is she doing? What, you know, this is so stupid. Is she really that excited about God that she's jumping around up there? This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Granted, I came from like old school Lutheran where you opened the hymnal and you were like, oh, very different. Yeah. And so that was probably part of it. You know, like, why are there like blue lights? Like, what is happening? Why is the drums in this little weird clear box? What is happening? This place is stupid. And
it's so fun hearing that perspective too, because it literally reminds me when I came to Christ. I saw, you know, I was open to the fact that there could be a God, and I started praying. And then when I heard nothing, I remember looking up front, and I'm seeing people worshiping, and I'm seeing people like crying, and people like women on the mic, and and I'm like, I was naive to think this was real. Like, this is all emotionalism,
right?
I was like, this isn't real. Like, and I was so cynical. So it's funny you say that. It's like, I know so exactly what you're talking about. Like,
why,
shut up.
Why are these people putting their hands in the air? Like, what do you?
This is all a show,
right?
Yeah.
You know, and then it was even if that person believes it, then they're just stupid.
Yeah,
they're stupid. Like, I hated it. I mean, I hated it. Now, she wasn't my wife yet, but she was my girlfriend. Now she's my wife, but she loved it. She loves to sing, you know. So she was like, yeah. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, I don't know if this is going to work, babe. Me and you, I might have to just all of this. But I made it through worship. And we sat down, and it was during this, it was right before Christmas. I should mention that when we walked in, there was a door greeter there, and it was communion day. And she holds this basket out of these little communion cups.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, no. No.
Yeah.
And I ended up changing my mind
Mm-hmm.
and going back and grabbing one.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever the series was, it was something basically about, is the gospel good news? And if it is, why don't we tell people about it? And the pastor came out, and it was so eerie, man. Like, and I've never asked him this, and I should, but I believe that he was like, new people, let me stare at them. Because his eyes were locked on me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people say that.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it. But I feel like it was like, oh, I've never seen these people before. Let me speak right to you. And
I'm the back man. You should know.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, there's nobody behind me. I don't,
Yeah.
But the words out of his mouth were something that I have never, ever, ever heard in a church before. And I will never forget them. He says, nobody comes to church to hear what they've done wrong. You already know all that. And I was like, say what? He's like, I don't care what you've done wrong. God already knows what you've done wrong. He doesn't care. He just wants your heart. And this is the same reaction I had that day. Like, what? He loves you. What? What do you mean he loves me? Then where the hell has he been?
Yeah.
Was what I said,
Yeah.
Like, oh. But dude, that one sentence was enough for me to like stop and consider. He just wants my heart. He just wants me to want him. I want you to want me. That's all he wants. Like, so all the decisions that I made, he just was there waiting for me to turn to him. He was there waiting for me to call out to him and say something along the lines of, help me or kill me. That's what he was waiting for. And all the steps that happened from the moment that I said that until this point right now were him intentionally working in my life to draw me back to him. And it opened my whole mind to something new. Like, I had to understand what it meant to have a relationship with God, because I'd never understood that before. I didn't even know that was a thing. God was not relational. God was a thing. He was just a being, not
impersonal.
Yeah. I had no idea that he had any desire for my heart. I had no idea that he had any desire to know who I was, or that he wanted to hear my problems, that he wanted to be my father. Like, I had no idea. Like, I knew that we called him Father, my Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. I know that. But I thought all that crap was just in the Bible.
Yeah.
I thought that was just all stories from, thousands of years ago that had absolutely no bearing on today in our advanced society. I had no idea that if I wanted to have a relationship with him, he was willing. And I had to explore it. I had to like dive in. I was like, this is new. This is crazy. This is nothing like anything I've ever heard before. All from those simple words. God doesn't.
He already knows.
Yeah, he already knows. Like, well, no wonder the building didn't cave in, you know?
Yeah. That's so interesting.
So I started really digging in, man. Yeah. Like, I don't dig into anything. Okay, that's not me. I'm like, you heard that phrase, jack of all trades. Mm-hmm. I am a master of none. I do not dig in. Everything in my life, for the most part, has come pretty easy to me. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, you have to read the whole book. You give me 4 pages, I'll summarize the book.
Yeah. IKEA instructions. Go to the last step.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's exactly right. Just show me the picture. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's how my whole existence has been for the most part. But this was different. I really wanted to invest in figuring this out because I had all of these years of school where I had A's on these religion tests just from like
understanding.
Yeah, you know, but never was there any like real true explanation of this relationship or why, you know, like it was almost like a history test based out of the Bible all the way through without any like philosophy to it. And let's face it, you know, therapy opened my mind to philosophical things a little bit more. And then there's this complete contradiction of what I knew and what I'm hearing now. And so I dug in and I dove in and I'm reading things in the Bible that I've read for years, like when I was younger, and never read at the same time. Like, this is in here? What? Yeah. Why didn't I know this?
Yeah.
And I started reading, and it's speaking to me in a new way. It's telling me things that I've never recognized before. It's literally like drawing me in, and I can't get enough. I just could not get enough. I was constantly reading. The pastor from the church campus that I go to, after we had been there for a couple months, said, "Hey, why don't you come in and meet with me?" And I remember going home and telling Katie, and I was like, "Pastor wants to meet with me." And she goes, "Why?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Right, you know?
The shaking leg comes back.
Correct. Yeah, I was like, this is real weird. I don't know. But I went and I met with him, and it turned out he just wanted to like help me on my journey. Mm-hmm. Help me start to understand, ask me if I had questions, help guide me. I still meet with him every week. He still does it. It's evolved so much over the last, couple of years, because in the beginning I was like, asking ridiculous questions and tons of them, like, "Hey, what are you reading in scripture?" And I'd be like, just, like, "Did this snake used to have legs?"
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "That's what you're asking me?" Oh, man.
Yeah. Okay, this is what we'll...
Right. Yeah. And thankfully the questions have graduated to a little bit more, substantial things. But he really helped my wife and I get on to the right track of understanding. And then shortly after that, we chose to make the decision to be obedient and get baptized.
Let's go.
And that was the most amazing experience ever. It was like the culmination of everything up until that point, my entire life up until that point, Because the Bible talks about you becoming a new creation in Christ. You know, the old self has passed away, and now there is a new self. Okay, whatever that means. You know, like,
Yeah.
at the time, it was just words. I didn't understand what it meant. And when I asked the pastor about it, he just said, well, listen, do you believe in God? I do. Do you believe that Jesus came, defeated death by raising himself from the dead for you? I do believe that. Then your next step is to be obedient. And what it says your next step is to be baptized. Well, then I'm going to do that. And it's almost better than, I mean, it's like better than my birthday, right? It's almost the day that I want to celebrate instead.
Yeah.
Because I remember standing up there in front of people that I was just starting to get to know. And this pastor saying, based on your belief in Christ, I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And dropped me backwards into this. At that time, it was a hot tub, which was, you know, that was pretty cool, you know, like in a jacuzzi. Yeah. And I dropped back into this water, and when they pull me out and I stand back up, I don't know how to explain this, man. It's like I'm 1,000 pounds lighter. It's like all of the bad decisions, all of the negative thoughts about myself, all of the things that I thought I was, all the things that people said I was, all of the terrible moments, the terrible choices, like, stayed in that water. Like, and I came out and I was just like, I was a new creation. I was just clean. And I was like, what the heck did they put in this water? You know, like, what was in there, man? And people are clapping and screaming and cheering and yelling, "I love you" and stuff. And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it's like, in that moment of coming out of that water, feeling that feeling, recognizing that I am loved by God so much that he never left me. Like, he never turned his back on me, even when I was cussing him out. Like, he never said, forget that, he's too far gone. Like, none of that ever happened. All of the things that I've been searching for this whole time, this unconditional love, this feeling, it was seriously just waiting there for me the whole time, dude. Like, the whole time, it was right in front of me, and I couldn't see it. And I was searching for it, like, forever. And it was like, coming out of that water, it was like,
I've been missing it.
Right. And it's right here.
Yeah, wow.
Like, my eyes were just open.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
And then, you know, of course you think, like, well, cool.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be great now. I'm a child of God. He loves me. I will never sin. I will never make another mistake. Everything is wonderful. And that's not how it goes. There are still mistakes. There are still struggles. There are still times that
you fail.
Yeah. And that something from the past goes, remember who you really are.
Yeah.
Remember who you really are. But the difference is that I now have this Father who loves me unconditionally going, no. That's not who you are. That's what you did. Mm-hmm. That's not who you are. And yeah, you messed up, but I got you. I'm right here. I'll help you through this. Like, don't worry about it. Like a father, like when you're a young adult or whatever, and you're just getting out of the house on your own, and you overdraw your bank account or whatever, and you're like, crap, man, I have no gas money. I need to get to work. And your dad is like, dude, I get it.
Yeah.
Here's $20, whatever that, I got you, and it's like anytime that there's a fail now, God's there to like reach down his hand to you and like help you back up, give you a little pat on the butt and send you on your way. Like,
get up, go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. It's funny. It's funny each time you're bringing up stuff. You're like, I'm just now thinking about this now.
I don't,
I'm just now like realizing this.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I don't,
It makes for a good video for those that are watching, as you're literally remembering back, because it wasn't too long ago, where God did all this in your life.
Yeah.
So I it's that's why I love that, to be able to hear that perspective from someone outside of the church, because that's my heart, and that's why we've created this channel, to reach people. Really, when I came into ministry, the pastor that was trying to put me in the right department, when I was an intern, asked me, what are your strengths? What do you feel like God's calling you to? What are your passions? And I'm like, I remember, and I've just carried this through even here at Bethel's Rock. It's, man, I want to reach people who hate Jesus, and I want to be outside the four walls of a church. Yeah. And it's funny because this channel is what we get to do. We get to showcase testimonies like yours and to reach people who have, who think they hate Jesus, but they've never met him. They went to church, but they left before ever meeting Christ. And there's a lot of people that share those. And that's why, you sharing is so powerful. It's because people are in your shoes. What you just described as history is their reality now. And the things that you talk about, they're like, wait, run that back right again. There's a flip, like you had knowledge about the book,
right? But
you didn't have understanding.
None.
And that's where it's the gift of the Holy Spirit that literally opens the eyes. No one comes to Christ unless the Father first draws him.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, Scripture says that this is foolishness, like you had said.
Yeah.
Again, like all of this is just Scripture. It's like you looking at other people. It's like, that just doesn't make sense. You believe in this invisible sky daddy? Like that's
Sky daddy. I like that.
Yeah, I get that called a lot to me. But you worship some invisible. Like it's only when you're brought to the end of yourself and you are humbled, where God gives grace and elevates you. But if you're proud, you're opposed already. You're starting off on the wrong foot.
Yeah.
But when you have the humility to say, I'm not enough, I'm in need of you. Yeah. That's where things begin to change. And your story, I hope it encourages people to see that. So
that's so cool that you say that. I mean, I remember a friend of mine who actually goes to this church had invited me every day for like ever.
Yeah.
Just come to church with me. And I remember I was standing outside and I was smoking a cigarette when he asked me, and I took it out of my mouth and I flicked it at him. And I said, I will never, ever go to church with you ever.
Wow.
And now I sit by this dork almost every Sunday, You
need those friends in your life, man. It's like there's friends that I got that I'm still praying that they know who he is. Cause it's like, I was actually just telling a guy, we have a guy, that we had met when we were going out evangelizing, filming content. Now he goes to my small group, and he was just saying, like, I'm still like, I'm an agnostic, and I know that you have some experience with God. It's me and my other buddy that were out witnessing, and he's in my small group, and we're talking to him, and he goes, I believe there's something out there, but I don't believe it's God. Like I don't believe I'm not sure if I believe in the God you do, but he's like, I'm trying to wrap my mind around how you keep saying that it's God that brought us here and it was God that led you to me and God is the one. Like you keep giving credit to God and it just doesn't make sense. Like how you met me once and you invited me into your home. You let me go upstairs and use your bathroom right next to your bedroom. And I'm like, first of all, like, I wasn't thinking, well, what were you? But it was funny because it was blowing his mind, that, just the trust and the
Right.
the familial, like, oh, just come over to my house. Like it just was blowing his mind. And so that's what's drawing him right now. And I told him, I said, bro, I'm like, I'm proud of you for coming and he's growing right now. There's a step where you begin to understand and there's steps that you had to take before God reveals himself in different ways.
Yeah.
And for this guy, he's seeking right now. And I told him, I said, I can say things, and I was pointing to my friend as we're talking to him because my other friend's a Christian, and I'm like, I can say something and it resonates with him because he's like, I know exactly what you're talking about because he knows God. I said, you don't know God. And
Right.
What we're trying to explain to you right now, it's like the spiritual is like basically explaining to someone that's been born blind what the color blue is.
That's a solid analogy.
How would you go about that?
Right.
There's nothing to compare it to. And so for you, it's like, dude, I totally get it. This guy, it's like, you just don't understand, but you will. And it's not going to be a word salad that I put together that makes you understand.
Right.
At the end of the day, it was the Holy Spirit odds are, this is what people don't understand. When they come into the church, they've probably heard the same things over and over again. They weren't ready to accept it though.
Right.
So when you heard that, you were at a place where God had already laid foundation and he'd been working on you. And that time God was like, okay,
Hear it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Opened your ears.
Yeah.
So, I believe it's only the grace of God that opens the eyes, but
that's so true.
He's always at work. So it's interesting. I love hearing your perspective because it is the perspective that most people share that outside of the church and why they're terrified to come in. So, but
That's good.
it's a good day. Good prodigal son. Read Luke 15. I think we can link that in the description of what you guys. I just had a guy give his life to Christ over at TikTok Live. His name is Brennan.
All right.
His wife got he was divorced from his wife. She found her cheating. He has 2 kids. He's like, he reached out to me and I'm like, bro, what's your? Because he wanted to give his life to Christ. And I'm like, what do you know about him? He wanted to hear about the gospel. Nothing. Just as like, I need this, what you just were talking about. So I broke down the gospel to him very simply. I'm like, do you believe this? He repented and he asked God to come into his life and he's crying. And I'm like, man, it's, I said I said, you should read Luke 15. And I said, pull it up right now. And I'm like, you got it pulled up? He said, yeah. And so I read it to him. I just read the first part about the celebration that happens when one sinner comes to repentance and the heart of a father. And he goes, bro, I didn't know that was in there. He goes, wow. I just
That's
had no.
so cool.
Yeah. So, I'd encourage you guys read Luke 15. I think it perfectly describes what God just did in Tommy's life. But we love you guys. If you have any questions, email me at pastoralex@bethelsrock.org or drop a comment. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. It really helps us in bringing the message of Jesus to as many people as possible. I pray that you were blessed and that you would come to know Christ. To know Christ is to know truth and to have life. It's more than just a historical figure. It's a personal relationship that you can have. And I want you to believe in it. You can experience the truth. Truth has a name, and his name is Jesus. God bless you guys, and we'll see you next week.